Hey everybody. I know I said in segment 2 that I would be in Blender, but I just remembered something, so um, I wanted to talk about it. Sorry, my headset cord is kind of a pain. So, the one thing I want to mention, for doing animations, I've been using, hold on one second. I think my controller battery is dying, of course. So one program I've been using for the animation stuff, or at least establishing a rig. So I think it's an IK rig, it's called. Essentially, it's bones for animation that affect whatever you're animating. And so Mixamo is an online repository that Adobe has, or that they got from someone else, that essentially has a bunch of pre-canned animations. Hold on, I'm going to take off my headset. Actually, I'm going to leave it on. Because the mic I'm using is on the headset. Bear with me, I got to find some batteries. So Mixamo has a bunch of pre-canned animations, and above all else, it automatically rigs your sculpt. So that is really amazing. And so one of the things I've ran into, though, with Deadpool specifically, is the guns. So depending on your model, if there's like odd additional pieces that don't really conform to like a humanoid form, it could error out on you when it's trying to do the auto rigging. So to get around that, I meant to show you guys how to prevent that issue when you're doing your export. So let's say there's certain things you want to export on a given model, but not everything. So how do you do that? So let me go back up here and hide this export transform. All right. So I believe that the guns and the swords could cause problems. And I actually, again, take this with a grain of salt because I'm new to all this, but I believe I want these separated from Deadpool himself, because when I go to animate Deadpool, he's going to be merged. So he'll just be one thing. So if the guns were statically merged to his body, right, how am I going to animate those? My thought process is I wouldn't be able to. So what I'm going to do here is hide these. And I think this is really cool that they did this in medium. Another reason to use parents. The sword here is a child of this piece of the backpack. It's a larger thing. It's not so hard to target like something small. And guess what? Just hide the parent and it's gone. So if I want Deadpool to export just like this without those, all I got to do is hide them. So cool trick if you have some components that you don't want to have with your export. So I'm going to go ahead and export him again, and I apologize for this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And sorry for the delay getting to the Blender portion, but again, I'm just trying to bring up a lot of things that I've struggled with over the last 6 months. So hopefully you guys find it helpful. And hopefully this doesn't take too long. And actually what I'll do, once I get exporting my second version, so the 10% decimated version, once I start that export in Medium, I'll actually go to my computer and I'll switch the OBS stream over to Blender so we can start talking about this while that finishes. And I can kind of show you some stuff on Blender so we're not just sitting waiting. One other thing to mention, someone a few months ago mentioned when you take your headset off that the interface seems to pause, and they thought, well, if your headset's just sitting there, then Medium isn't doing anything. That's not the case. So if you start a long process and you take off your headset, um, it's going to keep doing what what you've told it to do. So don't be afraid to just walk away, and you don't really need to set anything on your headset sensor to allow it to continue to work. When you put your headset back on, it might appear that way because the interface seems to kind of like catch up all at once, but it is working in the background. All right, so let's do Deadpool _low. Again, just re-exporting this without the guns and swords. All right, so that's started. I'm going to go switch OBS over, and we'll get looking at Blender. Just switching my microphone. All right, can you guys hear me? Good. All right. All right, so I'm switching the OBS stream from Medium to Blender. So let me get Blender fired up here. All right, looks like you guys can see it. Let me go ahead and hide Medium. Oh, it looks like it's hidden. Okay, so Blender. When you first launch Blender, it will come up to the screen. Just click off of it. And it always starts out with this cube. You can just hit delete and it'll prompt you, are you sure? Just click the delete. Some other things to know, and I haven't figured out why this is. First thing you want to do probably is go into File, User Preferences, go over to your system here, and if you have like an NVIDIA card, you'll want to change from none on this Cycles Compute device over to CUDA and select your GeForce. And oops, one other thing there. So make that change and then make sure you hit the Save User Settings. I don't know why you're not seeing that sub screen. I apologize. And then let's see what else. Over on the Render tab here, this little camera. Oops, I didn't mean to click that. If you look here, why aren't I seeing what I'm looking for?
supposed to be a GPU option. I don't know, I'm not seeing it. Well, give me a second on that. Let's see, is it cycled? Oh, okay. So you need to switch from Blender render. It'll be on by default. And this is, for whatever reason, this happens to me on every new Blender file. So make sure that you check that you have it on cycles on each new session that you're doing, and then you'll want to go to this render tab and then change it from CPU to GPU compute. All right, so I already have a Blender file set up. Like I said, I've been setting up our project folder. You probably can't see what I'm doing here because I just have it on Blender. But I'm going to move those couple files we exported. A second here. All right, so now I'm back in Blender. I'm going to open up the Blender file. So when you save a Blender scene, it's going to be .blend as the extension. So I just have a basic blank scene already set up. Oops. As you can see, I haven't done these steps, so I'm going to change it to cycle render. And then I'm going to save my Blender session. And I'm going to make sure this is set to GPU, and I'll save the session again. All right, so now the next time I open Blender, I'll go ahead and do that now. Click off the screen, do File, Open Recent, choose my previous file. My GPU compute is set, and I'm on Cycles Render. So now it's set up to be able to do a render properly. All right, so how do you import your model that you exported from Medium? If you do the File menu here, and then Import, you have many options. We're going to go ahead and choose FBX since that was the export that we did. And I'm going to choose the low so it loads faster. And this might take a little bit longer than normal because I was doing that export operation as well in Medium. So bear with it if it's a little slow. All right, looks like it's up now. All right, so here is my model with the swords and the guns. And I actually just saw that Medium finished the export without the guns. So I am going to actually use that export instead of this one. So give me 1 second, just switch this around. So I'm going to close. I'm not going to save my changes. Because I want those guns off of that other FBX export, I'm just going to change the name of the OBJ or the FBX that we exported to Deadpool with guns. And the reason I'm going to do that is so that I can go snag the guns and swords off of that other Blender file so that I can pull them into the one I'm going to make an animation out of. So let me do that. Alright, so I now have an export with the guns. And now I'm just going to bring over the one without, put it in my project folder. All right, going back in Blender. I'm going to open up my scene. All right, so now I'm going to do File Import FBX, and this time, why didn't it show up? Oh, it's there. So I have the one with guns, but I'm going to choose the low.fbx. That's the ones with the one without the guns. So we're going to go ahead and import that. So if the 10% decimation, which lowers the polygon count when it's being exported for medium, if that is not enough, um, if it didn't remove enough polygons, we can address that in Blender. And for Mixamo specifically, I want to say about 100,000 vertices um, is what Mixamo prefers. I'm going to do some more testing on that and try to narrow it down to an exact number. But you can see here's the Deadpool model we just imported. This is the lower polygon version of it. In Blender, if you need to know like your vertice count or your faces, etc., the numbers are here. So you can see we're quite a bit higher than what Mixamo is going to want. One other thing you'll notice is on this right hand side, all of the layers in Medium come in that way to Blender. So they're still broken up into all the various parts. Now you could merge all these in Medium, but that can cause issues where your sculpt gets kind of cut off. So I'd recommend not merging in Medium, just export it the way I showed you. And then once you're in Blender, you can just highlight. So if you I think it's right click by default. I switch mine to left. You just click and it'll highlight the first one. If you hold down the shift key and click another one, it's really hard to tell with the interface colors I have, but this is still highlighted, the eyes. So you just go down this entire list, skip the lights, but choose them all. So I'm just going to go down and shift click all these. There might be a more efficient way to do this. But again, I'm new, so this is how I've been doing it. And then let's say you just have a bunch selected. If you go over to this menu on the left, you just hit join. And like almost instantaneously it merges them all. And look at that. I watched a video earlier today and I learned something. So instead of doing all that shift click business, here let me select just one thing. So I just have this forearm selected. If I hold down the C key, I get that sphere. If I just click and hold down the mouse button and just run my cursor across all of Deadpool, look at what it did. It actually selected all those. So I learned something today. So I'm going to go ahead and hit join. And hopefully it doesn't make a liar out of me. Alright, so how do you get off of the selection tool? Okay, so you click the opposite mouse button to get off the selection tool, then hit join. There we go. So now we have Deadpool, whoops. Sorry, I'm still getting used to this. So we have Deadpool, he's all merged. There's odd navigation controls, so to kind of move up and down like this, you hold shift and your middle mouse button, and that'll allow you to kind of go up and down in the space. If you just do middle mouse button, you can rotate your view. All right, so he's all merged, and we can tell that over here, there's just one layer called layer 94. If you right click on it and do rename, I'm going to call it Deadpool. All right. So um, I'm not sure what this object is called. I just think of it as the object, and then if you go down a layer, that's the actual mesh. All right, so we talked about, and when you click on the mesh, it actually switches your mode to edit mode, so just be aware of that. And I don't want to be in edit mode right now, I just want to be in object mode. All right, so we talked about the fact that the next hop in my process is Mixamo, and that my vertice count is too high. So in order to address that, I need to decimate the model. Just like we decimated it, the slider when we exported in medium, that was decimation. So to do that in Blender, if you click on your model anywhere on it and make sure it's highlighted, and you go over to this gear tab, you'll see this add modifier. You want to click that drop down, and you have a decimate option. So go ahead and click on that. And then you need to change this number to an amount of decimation. So I'm going to try 0.7. And it has to do a calculation on that. And then you need to hit the apply key to have it actually do it. So be patient with it. It seems to delay a little bit on my machine, but once you get that, once you get the sphere icon or that spinning icon, you know it's working. And you can also watch up here. So my verts dropped from 800,000 down to like 600,000. I need it further than that, so I just decimate again. So I'll do 0.5 and apply. And then I typically just watch this number. All right, it halved it. I'll do it again. Still think it needs to come down a little more, so I'm going to do it one more time. If you ever go too far on this, you can always Control Z to undo. All right. I'm going to see if this 150,000 will work. So one other thing I typically do on this, once I've decimated, I'll zoom in. If I see any artifacts, you can hit this smooth shading. And then if you pop into edit mode, that's going to switch over to the vertices view. And once in there, you can do smooth vertex. Just do it one time. And that should smooth out any artifacts and make it look smooth again. All right, so we've done all those steps. I'm gonna try one more thing here. The backpack looks funny. Or the, not the backpack, the holsters, but I might have taken this too far, but we'll see. All right, so now I've done the decimation down to The level I think will allow me to upload it to Mixamo, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. All right, and then if let's say you've made some changes in Blender and you want to use this model in another application, well, we can go down and hit File, Export, and you can export to other formats if you need to. You might need an OBJ. In this case, I want the FBX again for Mixamo. So now I'm going to put Deadpool, and I'm going to say 150K. I like to put how many vertices are in the file, just so um, I can know that when I'm opening the file up. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and hit Export FBX. Again, I'm in my projects folder for this project. So go out and it's there. All right, so now I'm gonna switch OBS over to Mixamo, hopefully. Oops, sorry guys. All right, so I'm gonna go to Mixamo. So again, as I mentioned, this is a online website um, that Adobe owns. So you just need a login to Adobe. If you don't have that, I think you can sign up for one for free. And then you go to this www.mixamo.com, log in, and once you're logged in, I think there's a default model here. You can see that it keeps track of the last model you loaded. So I've already loaded Deadpool once, but we're going to walk through it again. So when you first get in, it might be a default model. So you want to load your model up. You say upload character, and it prompts you. Um, you say select character file. I'm gonna find my project folder here. All right. So here's all the various files that I have so far. The Blender file. I think that'll always have this additional blend one file. We have our high 100% export out of medium of Deadpool. I also did an export of the OBJ while I was at it, just in case I needed it. And then we have the low FBX. Love Windows 10. You can actually click on all these files and see the preview. I guess it can't do that with OBJ, but it can with FBX. So there's our 150K version. So we can actually compare what that one looks like. The 150K versus the 800K one. Sorry. There we go. So the 800K one looks a little bit better, but it's not much difference. And then finally, let's see, with guns. Cool. All right, so let's go back to the Deadpool low. So, or I'm sorry, the 150K one. So this is the one we decimated in Blender and then re-exported. All right, so just select that file and say open, and you'll see this uploading character screen, and it's going to upload your model to the cloud. Hope you guys can hear me okay. It looks like you can. Excuse me. I'm gonna go snag my coffee really quick while this finishes. Hey, looky that. Pretty cool. So with the FBX, including the vertex colors out of medium, you get the basic coloring of your model in Mixamo, which is really cool. All right. So if your orientation is messed up, you can always rotate the model if it's turned around. But if you follow the instructions in the session 1 where I talked about the export, transform, and medium, you shouldn't have that problem. All right, so we just hit next once we have the orientation correct. And then we're prompted with placing markers. So to do these, you just click and drag, and I just, for reference, look at this one over here. So it wants it on the chin, and it looks like the bottom of the curve. You want right at the base of the chin. You do your wrists. If your model is slightly off center, luckily for me, it might be a hair off. I probably don't have to worry about that, but if it's way off center, just uncheck use symmetry, and then you can move these independently. So it'll just let you move each. I'm gonna keep it on use symmetry. Elbows. So pick your elbow point, pick your knees, and your groin. All right. And then if you have any import issues, if you click next on this and it spins for a few minutes and fails, you might want to try changing it from standard skeleton down to no fingers. For whatever reason, if your model, like the hands are weird, it may not import with standard skeleton. I know from previous experience with Deadpool, it does work to give me the full fingers, like the whole hand, as part of the rigging that it generates. But one of my previous ones, it wouldn't work unless I chose this option. And I guess just to mention it, these are just the canned hands out of medium. It's under the human anatomy stamps. So I guess those work if you wanted to have animatable hands. In my case, I do because I want to do some stuff where he's grabbing his gun and different stuff. All right, so I'm going to hit next on this, and it's going to sit here and rotate, and it gives you an estimate. If you come, like, leave your computer while this is happening, and you come back, and it's just sitting at that same symmetry screen, your upload failed. If you're not there at the very moment it happens, it shows an error message for a second, and it goes back to that screen. So you're like, did it work or did it not? If it's back on that place the marker screen, it didn't work. Another cool thing about decimating your model is it's less vertices, so it takes less time to upload, less time to process. So this should upload fairly fast or process fairly fast. And then when you're working in other tools like Blender or Substance Painter, the model is just going to move quicker because it's less your computer has to calculate. I would imagine the same with the rendering process. Um, so, and again, it could be dependent on what platform your end content is for. I'm going to put this on mute until this finishes. Well, bummer. I got the error message. So I guess 150K polygons was not low enough. So if you get that error message, you can try choosing the no fingers option. I know for a fact that's not my problem in this case. So I'm going to hit cancel on this real quick. I'm going to pop back in Blender. So I've still got it open. And if that happens to you, let's remember our steps. We go back into edit mode. We're still on the modifier tab, so we're going to choose decimate. And we're going to do 0.5 again. Oops. Do not go in edit mode. Stay in object mode. My bad. All right, so still have the decimate modifier up here. I'm in object mode, and I'm gonna hit apply. And we just dropped to 79,000 vertices. So maybe 100,000 is the cutoff. But I'm gonna try it like this. So again, I'm gonna do File, Export, FBX. I'm gonna choose to name it, I think, 80,000. All right, gonna go ahead and hit export. Another cool thing about decimating your models, they get exponentially smaller on your hard drive. All right, let's make sure you can still see Mixamo. You can. So I'm gonna hit upload, select my character file, choose the 80K low version, and I didn't smooth it, but it looks fine. So 80K low, open. Sorry to have to go through this a few times, but at least you're seeing what can happen. And you might wonder why we're doing this, because I don't think I mentioned why. Once we get this uploaded, it's going to rig the model for animation. So it's going to have the IK bones, which is just a skeleton for your model, and it's going to do that all automatically for you. All right, so once it gets here, fix the orientation, hit next. Step through placing the markers again. All right, and then we wait again. But it's going to put a IK rig in your model that you can animate. So once this is finally uploaded, if you look in the background here, there's some looping animations that are already done. And there's also there's some still poses as well, so it's just a static pose. So maybe you don't want the animation, but what if you just wanted a static pose for your character? I'm planning to use that pretty heavily. Um, I've used it already for taking like a static pose that is already in Mixamo, just downloading that and using that as like the start point for an animation. Because they'll say it's 90% of the way there, right, in the right pose. So there's a couple ways you can use it. And I just realized there's one other step I should have done, but oh well, we can do it later, or we can do it now while we wait. So back up a hair because after you've decimated it, but before you upload it to Mixamo, you might also want to go into edit mode and choose mesh, UV unwrap, in Smart UV project and click OK and then OK. That's going to create a UV map that you'll be able to apply textures to. I use that with Substance Painter, and I should have done that before I uploaded to uh, Mixamo because then any of the animations I download would have already had the UV map done. You could always download, separate animations. You'll just have to run this UV map process again for each one. And then to see if that took effect on your model, I think we go back here. No, you got to be in edit mode to see it. Oh, maybe not. Yeah. So either way, if you go to this icon, you can see here we have a UV map now, and this is the vertex colors that came over from medium. So I think if I change to texture view, maybe not. Maybe that strips. That might, when you do the UV map, it might strip the color data. Um, but for me, because I'm using Substance Painter to paint this post medium, I do need that UV map. All right. While I'm rambling, this has finished. So once it has auto rigged your character, it will show up in this preview, which is really cool. And I would recommend just kind of scroll around and look for any anomalies. I know the first time I did Deadpool, like his elbow was tweaked really bad. You can always hit back and make an adjustment to the markers to fix that. For the most part, this time around, it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna hit next. All right, and now we get static T-pose. Why did we go through all this? I'm kidding. Let's see. Which one do we want to do? Mm, Gotta pick a good one first. Oh yeah, victory. Here we go. All right, so you choose one of the animations, and then you get to see it with your character. You can make some adjustments on the right here. Um, so some of these like speed it up. You just have to kind of play around with it to find what you want. But if you make these adjustments now, that's going to be included in the animation that you'll use in Blender. So pretty cool stuff. Let me find one of the static poses as well. If you type pose up here, you can pretty much narrow down the more static poses. So we got the, you know, chilling Deadpool. And again, if it, maybe you need to make adjustments on the arms if they're not quite right, they give you some of those options. And you can always fix some of this in Blender as well, but I found it helpful to uh, make adjustments here as well. Let's look at a longer animation. Why are these paused? I guess these are all the still frame ones, that's why. Uh, there we go. So some of them are quite involved like that. Um, so you might need to scroll out, but it's really cool to see one of your characters from Medium come to life, or at least for me it has been. All right, let me find a good one here. Some of them are just ridiculous. Again, you can. I guess this one doesn't. Oh yeah, it does. So this overdrive, I think, is speed. So pretty cool. You can trim it if you want to, so only get a portion of the animation. looking for a specific one. It's not that one. Here, I'll just use one I'm familiar with. Let's see. What is it? Jump. Oh, cover. There we go. So I'm going to pick cover sneaking left. And you can download multiple of these at the same time or individually and use them all in a scene. So let's see. Now you just hit download. Just leave it at the defaults. And it will download an FBX file. And I'm going to move that to my project folder. And heck, why don't I grab a couple of these so I can just show you what that looks like. I'll take a, gosh, there's a static pose that I want. Let me see if I can find it really fast. Maybe it's called standing. I like this idle one because it has a slight shift you can see. So that'll be a good start point for one of the animations I want to do for Deadpool. So I'm going to take this one. I'm going to make an adjustment on his arm space. His hands are a little too close to his sides with the holsters. So let's see how that looks. Just a touch more. There we go. Perfect. So let me download that one. All right, so I've got a couple animations for Mixamo. So let me switch OBS back to medium, or not medium, Blender. All right, so hopefully you guys are seeing Blender now. So I still have the low poly mesh in my scene, and I'm going to leave that there. Let's talk about setting yourself up for a render. I've found using this process, just leave your low poly mesh in the middle here, and before you even bother importing the animations, this is your camera, and so I'm going to move the camera down and position it near that static model that's in the center. And the reason I'm going to do that is when I import one of the animated FBX files, that's likely going to end up right around this center point as well. So if I set up the camera ahead of time, it's really easy to pull in several animations and already have your camera kind of set up to just kind of get a basic look at it. I would also recommend kind of orientate your camera as you're moving these. Don't make huge movements to the light or camera. This is your main sunlight, just basic light. But I would change the orientation because it's real easy to get your camera like in a really wacky position. So just make slight adjustments and check to see if you're kind of getting closer if you struggle with it like I do anyway. All right. So if I want to check if he's actually in my camera, if you click on view and go to cameras and say set active object to camera, if you have your camera selected, um, it actually moves us inside the camera. And then once we're there, you can actually click and navigate and move the camera. So it wasn't on him, so I'm just going to move it over, get him in the camera's viewport, and then I have to click again to finalize that movement. So just be aware of that. And then if you want to get out of this view back to 3D view, if you just click and hold your center mouse button and then move your mouse left or right, it'll pop you back out of the camera. So, and I think it is numpad 0 to pop back into your camera. So if you just hit numpad 0, you can pop back and forth. All right, but we have the static model here. So let's see how our lighting looks. So if you want to do a render to see what your camera's seeing, just go up and click render and do render image. And just like that, we can see our static Deadpool in Blender cycles rendered. If I wanted to save this render, if you go down here to image, you can save a copy of it. And then I think if you do save all images, let's say you did the animation render, I think you could save all the slices of the animation as images as well. All right, so, and then you can also make adjustments to your render settings over here, like resolution. I wouldn't play with these too much initially, but you can do that. You can make changes to the resolution, where you want the output files to go. I'm going to change this really quick to MPEG format. I'm going to turn on motion blur. And what else? Let's see. If we go to encoding, you can choose like from pre-canned options here. I'm going to choose I'm going to choose the H.264. I'm going to put it on lossless or perceptually lossless, and then super fast. So these are just options you can change or tweak. All right, so we've done a render, but how do I get back to the 3D view that we've been in? If you go down here, you can click this little button, and these impact each like section of Blender. So I'm going to click back on 3D view, and now I'm back where I was. If you do view, you can toggle what they call a quad view, and that will put you in like a perspective where you see the front, top, you know, back and front, and then your user perspective, and then you can toggle that back off. All right. So how do we get the basic animation we got from Mixamo into Blender? So now we do File, Import, FBX, and I'm going to choose the crouch sneaking left, since that actually has some movement we can look at. So you just import that FBX, and it looks bad right now because it's overlaid with the just static low poly. So to get the low poly out of the scene but not like delete it from the file itself or the scene itself, just go up here and you can click these two things, the eye and the camera, and that will hide it. And it won't show up in your render, but it will still be in your file. And then I also noticed that Deadpool is got his back to the camera, I think. Let me check that. So I'm going to render the image, and sure enough it is. And if you want to like speed this up because you've saw what you need to see, you can just hit that X and it'll stop the render. Go back to 3D view. Um, so I want to spin him around. So with the armature selected, I think, I mess this up sometimes. Oops. You can always hit Control Z if you mess up. I'm going to hit the rotate button here, and I don't know why it's rotating at such a weird angle. Probably because of the origin. So I'm going to do set origin to 3D cursor and see if that fixes it. No, it does not. Never mind that. So normally I would spin him around, but because of the animation or something, it's kind of rotating strange, so I'll just move the camera in this case. Because I'm a noob. To rotate the camera, you can hit the R key. That will give you one rotation. And then if you hit the R key twice, you get this different icon with the 4 arrows. And this gives you, I think, left, right, up, and down. So in this case, I just need to spin it around. And I can hit 0 on the numpad and then adjust the viewport again. But I actually want to be on this side since he's going to go this way. So, and I think when you're in this mode, even you can hit the R keys. Just move your mouse just a touch though. It's pretty sensitive. So I'm going to change it at a pretty extreme angle this way and then move it back here. That's looking good. All right. So we've got a dynamic camera angle, it looks like. If you look down here, this is the timeline of the animation, but there's no keys showing, keyframes. And that's because I don't have the armature selected. So if I select the armature that has the animation applied to it, you can see that here. Now we see all the keyframes for the animation. So if we hit this play button, then we'll see the animation play out. Oh, but then it pauses for a long time. Well, that's because this animation is only about 40 frames long, but you can see that our start and end frames are 1 and 250. So if you click in this end field and then move your mouse left or right, you can actually adjust that length down to what you want. So I'm going to put it at 41, and now when we play the animation, it should loop to that endpoint. So that's pretty cool, especially when you're doing your own keyframes. So pretty cool. We can see the animations playing out. And then I'm going to back this up to, this is your current frame. So we're on currently frame 27. Again, I thought you can click and drag in that field. Maybe not. Yeah, you can. Okay. So if you click in that field, you can move back and forth and adjust the frame. Another trick I learned, you can do the up and down arrows, and that will move between keyframes. So that's really handy. All right, so what else? I'm not going to go into all the keyframing pieces other than, I guess, to tell you this button right here. Right now, we can't make new keyframes. Let me adjust this out longer. So let's say I wanted to make a new keyframe. If I move my animation time to the future, and then I press this button here, and you see this key icon. It's now in keyframing mode, so I'm going to switch out to this view. So if I make a change now, it's going to create a keyframe there. So I'm going to click, whoops, see, I don't know what I'm doing. If you mess it up, just hit Control Z. Oh, this is something good to know. Go to, where is it? Oh, I'm not on the armature, that's my problem. So I'm going to go to the armature, have that selected. Then I'm going to go down to here, and there's this checkbox called X-ray. That's really cool because it actually shows you the bones through your model. So this is helpful when you're doing the animation. And this is where you get to see that I'm still learning as well. All right, so I still haven't created a new keyframe, so I'm going to go to around here. I'm trying to think, do I need to be in? I know I want the armature selected, but I'm not able to select any bones, so I need to change it to pose mode. All right, so we're in pose mode. We have this button clicked so we see the keys. And now, if we move, if we click on an individual bone and we move his arm, when you go to move, notice it says auto keying on up in the right hand corner. And now you know that it's going to create a keyframe after you make these movements. So, and what's really cool too about the armature is it has restrictions. So it can, only rotate the way the arm should likely rotate, which is pretty cool. Um, and you can see that the bicep impacts the forearm and hand. So for this keyframe, I am going to move that bone, and I'm just going to leave it on that same keyframe. I typically just use these rotate options, so I hit R or RR to switch between the rotations or the types of rotation. So let's see, I'm going to move his arm. I'm going to move his arm that way. So I want his arm on that side to go that way. I'm going to move this arm down here, like he's maybe coming up to the corner. I'm going to reach this leg out. Just like in medium, kind of, just work your way down the bones is probably the easiest. I'm going to turn this foot in because it looks kind of weird at that angle. And he is stepping forward, so this foot would remain planted. Let's see, maybe his body weight would, ooh, that was not what I wanted. So I'm going to just click to finish that, and then I'm going to undo it. So if you mess up on one of these movements, just do Control Z. Apparently the center spine bone moves the entire spine, so don't do that one. So I think his weight would shift slightly. Don't know if we can move these. I guess moving them does one of the rotations, so we don't want that. All right, so I've made a keyframe now. I'm going to turn this keyframe mode back off, and now I'm going to play my animation. And I hope that that stuck. Yeah, it did. So our animation plays out, and then the adjustments I made to my keyframe are there. So I guess that's my basic tutorial on how to take your model from medium out to Blender, up to Mixamo to get it rigged, bring it back into Blender, and I even showed you how to do basic keyframes. I hope this was all helpful to you guys. I think this has been a long stream, and I will stop this one now. I am going to do one more segment, which is how to take the FBX and retexture it. Because if you notice on this example, if I go to my texture mode or material mode, where's my medium paint job? It's gone. So I'm going to show you how to create a new skin for this. You know what? I could show you both. So I'll show you how to do it in Blender, the basics of that, and I'll also show you Substance Painter, which I think is absolutely cool. I just picked that up, and I'll show you how to do that to put a paint job back on your model once you get it rigged in Mixamo. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. And good luck with sculpting and animating and all this stuff. I'm having the time of my life. I hope you guys are having fun too. Have a good night.